Hey everybody, it's Dak here from the Ed Boys, and the topic of today's video is the wilderness and why you should not be afraid of it. A lot of players are scared of doing any content that involves the wilderness, and they have a pretty good excuse. Getting PK'd sucks, especially when you're just minding your own business out there. And what if you lose some expensive stuff? It can be very frustrating, understandably, and I'm not going to try to sell you on this whole wilderness as some profit EHP wonderland, but it does have its benefits. Let's go ahead and start off with some of those benefits, just ignoring the fact that you could get PK'd for now, because we're all aware of it. We all get it. Could happen. Easiest example is the wilderness bosses. These things are very difficult to kill, but you do have the safe spot option. This does open up a door to a whole different conversation. Overall, they have fantastic loot though, and it heavily makes up for it. None of the individual drops are bank changing, but the Ring of the Gods is a pretty damn good boost, and each of them can drop a dragon pickaxe at a reasonable rate, which are like 4.5 mil at the moment. They have non-uniques that still add up pretty well, like the Onyx Bolt Tips or the Snapdragons from Venenatis, or Crush Nest from Callisto even. Overall, these bosses do provide a great moneymaker and decent pet odds for those of us who love them. It hasn't been that long since they made this altar somewhat useful, by actually letting you use your bones on it to get some good prayer XP and not even always use the bone. Again, ignoring the occasional tough guy with a staff, this is overall the best prayer XP you can get in the game, and that alone explains the benefit of this altar. And what about this altar? With all these magey dudes that can normally crank you, I can just AFK train here even at a very low level with some chance at an Elder Robe drops and overall some pretty solid herb drops. Any low level player can do this, and honestly a few 100k drop for somebody who doesn't have very high total level, you can't complain about that. Ecumenical Keys. Have you ever wasted a bunch of supplies trying to get 40 KC for Arma? Never again. Wilderness Slayer has a unique way to crank out some Slayer points on easy tasks or even get longer tasks of the previously mentioned wilderness bosses. Not to mention, it's the only reasonable way to get a rune pouch on a hardcore Iron Man. And let's not forget Revenants. These are one of the best moneymakers in the game, though it is clearly a minefield of PKers. We get it. Look, overall the benefits of wilderness activities outweigh the risk as long as you're paying attention to what you're doing. In fact, if there was no PvP out in the wilderness, all of these would be super OP activities in the game, which is reasonable. That's why they're out there. That's the whole idea. High risk, high reward. But what about clue scrolls? They always have shit rewards, and I just get PK'd for my spade! For one, the moment that you decided to follow your clue scroll anywhere, even outside of the wilderness, you always set yourself up for the likely shit reward that they bring, unless you're that one guy who gets lucky, in which we all envy you. You only have to bring a few items to the wilderness to do a clue. The clue step, a clue box to save it if you die, probably a spade depending on the clue, and maybe a weapon and a knife to get through some spider webs. So with really no risk, even though it can still be frustrating to have wasted your time a little bit, and sometimes it happens. Even if you had some risk on you out there, like let's say you're fighting one of the bosses, it's not that much different than risky stuff outside of the wilderness. Let's say you bring some decent gear with you and you get PK'd at Vedi and you lose about 100k. You didn't have any sort of drops, you just got out there, rip. Now let's compare this to a rough Zulrah fight. Blue Zulrah's only using range attacks and you just can't seem to hit, so you just use a full inventory of food, get through all your restores, then you get a crystal seed as a drop, or even die at the last minute and get no drop. Compared to the 100k plus profit that you could have just made on a better kill, you're instead losing money on the fight and your time still got wasted. Overall, both fights really just come down to some bad luck, either rough hits from a PVM RNG factor, or the fact that a PKer just decided to show up in your world. All I'm getting at is sometimes things happen that are out of your control, and you really should not waste your time worrying about that. On a final note for like wilderness safety, as ridiculous as it sounds, the more time you spend out there, you're going to start getting used to being attacked by other players. Now hear me out. The first PKer that shows up while you're doing something in the wildy, you know your heart was pounding, you just felt screwed off the bat, there's no way you were getting out of this, the most nerve-wracking thing of your life, and then you lost some stuff. I felt the same way too at first. The more PKers that you encounter, the better you're going to get at defending against them. Just because someone shows up to kill you doesn't guarantee they will. Overall, stay calm and just pay attention to what they're attacking you with. If you protect from their attacks, you can usually get away from somebody. You're not always going to get away though. That's something you just got to accept, unfortunately. Don't bring a lot of stuff with you, especially if you're on a budget. And if you're getting frustrated with PKers, you can just leave and try it again later. Overall, the too long didn't read of this vid, the benefits of the wilderness outweigh the risk, and if you play it smart, you really should never have anything to worry about. If you're still afraid of the wilderness and you don't want to go out there, well, that's alright, man. There's a lot of other content in the game, but be aware, if you would take the time to go out there and try some stuff, you might find it benefits your account a lot.